Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. Dear brothers and sisters, today we want to discuss verse number 32, chapter number 47, chapter by the chapter name is Muhammad. Dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, throughout the history of Islam, each one of us, each Muslim, each non-Muslim, he has a testing paper. And that paper have questions. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing each one, how he will be able to answer these questions. Are you understand the material? Most of the questions are a case study questions. Means it's not something you memorize and you're gonna go in the exam and just like, bam. No, they are indirect questions. There are questions where you have to link things together to be able to come to the right answer. And one of the main things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introducing in this verse is that some people at the time of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, and until this time, they can commit to Islam and say we're Muslims. But indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that their actions are against Islam. Their actions is against the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their actions are against other fellow believers, other Muslims who don't have the money, other Muslims who don't have the provisions, other Muslims who don't have the power. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is introducing that concept to tell us that those people who on the surface might say, I love Islam, I can, devote my whole life for Islam. Indeed, they're the first one who are fighting Islam. And as we see in the war of Gaza going on, and the war in Sudan going on, the wars in Yemen, the wars in Syria, the primary enemy, the primary cause of corruption are the people who are claiming that they're Muslims, but they're not practicing the Islam the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have prescribed. And they're not, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned it here, they're not following the true guidance. And why is that? Because as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning, few ayahs after, because of the worldly gain. Allah make that test such as a difficult test because the reward is so high, which is the Jannah. He made it so tempting. This life is so tempting. The pleasures are so tempting. The love of the money is so tempting. The love of the women is so tempting. The love of power is so tempting. And you'll see throughout the history of Islam why Muslims lose the status, why Muslims lose the power, why Muslims lost their territories, why Muslims lost their ability to implement the religion of Allah, because they were unable to stop the love of this dunya, the love of this life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell you, I'll bring you the dunya, I'll bring you this life if you take care of your hereafter. If you be conscious about the hereafter. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these verses is bringing to us that all these leaders, all these corrupted governments who are on the surface saying we're Muslims, there are indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, there are the primary cause of the falling of the Muslim empires. And the history is a witness. A lot of bloodshed happened, a lot of wars, a lot of fights because of the power. If the people had in their mind that I'm here living for Allah, you won't have these problems. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, all your prayers, all your fastings, all your dua, it will be rejected. Why? Because all of these things, prayers, fastings, hajj or pilgrimage, charity, all of these things, what is the purpose of it? The purpose of it is so you can practically enforce the laws, the interest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth. But on one hand, you confess and you say, I love Allah, I love His Prophet. And on the other hand, you fight Allah, fight His Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, with, and a lot of time, helping the enemies, creating corruptions and creating fights between Muslims together. At the end of, for worldly benefit, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, all what you're doing of acts will be voided. You know, like a void check? Void. It's not going to be accepted by Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to tell us one thing. In order for all these rituals we do, ibadah, means salah, prayers, fasting, charity, you have, or we have to complete the other part of the equation to be practically righteous. For example, a lot of the heads of these states, you know, they're the primary cause of the problems. They want to enrich themselves. They want to enrich the businessmen around them. And who is paying the bills for that? It's just the small, the regular guy who have a family, who cannot afford the prices. And it's all because of the guy on the top. He wants to accumulate the wealth and control the masses. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that we have to act justly outside. Be just. In order for our deeds to be accepted. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will hold them. He'll hold. You know, when you have something, He said, you know, you go to the bank, I'm going to hold that check until it cleared. You cannot put it in your account. Same thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're not going to put the deeds in our account until what? Until the day comes which we are actually practically enforcing justice. And the most important thing is to be against ourselves, just with ourselves. That I don't take something, it's not mine. I don't infringe on the rights of others. I have a right and you have right. Everybody has rights. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين.